Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the 415. I'm Raina Starr. With me, as always, is the incredible Star Bustamonte. Say hello, Star.
Hello, Star.
415 is brought to you by Desperate House Witches, House of Black Hat Magic, and The Wild Hunt. Please note the opinions shared here are myself and my co-host, and not a reflection on anybody else or their entities or subsidiaries. You will hear cursing. You will hear laughter. You will hear annoyed voices. Be prepared. It's been an active couple of weeks, y'all. So, Star. Kevin McCarthy, are you kidding me? It took longer, I will admit, it took longer for this to happen than I thought it would. There's no way you can make that many deals with that many people, have them be counter to each other, and not have some shit fly in your face. So what's the situation in the House now? Patrick McHenry is acting Speaker of the House for pro tem. So where do we go now? What's going to happen? Are we at risk for somebody worse than McCarthy? Is that possible? I'm assuming it's possible. It seems like Matt Gaetz pulled that card in order, every card that McCarthy promised to people have basically turned around to kick him in the behind. So what's happening here? Where do we go now?
Well, that's a really good question. So I will say that removing him went much quicker than installing him as Speaker.
For sure.
I mean, pretty much everybody is mad at everybody in the House. The majority of Republicans are mad at the Republicans that voted to oust him. They're mad at the Democrats because even a small percentage of the Dems could have kept him in his seat, but. And, of course, they're blaming this on the Democrats, which is kind of hilarious. I think that the Democrats could have easily saved him and his speakership and then extracted their own revenge in making it, by saying, hey, we'll bail your ass out, but then this is what we want. In exchange, which is for you to get. Well, but wait, because so I think the reason that didn't happen is because right after they managed to get a stay on the budget, McCarthy went out in front of the cameras and then did like a little tour of news shows. And basically blamed everything on the Democrats, and it was just a horse's ass. And so, my guess would be that they felt like even if they extracted a bunch of promises from him in exchange for keeping him in the speakership, that there was no guarantee that he'd honor that. So so they it's a little weird for Democrats to be agreeing with Matt Gaetz and that whole those extremists and which it seems weird to me that we're using extremists in the GOP because they all seem kind of extreme to me. But yeah, so it's pretty crazy. Where we go next is a really good question because Republicans really can't seem to agree on anything, whether or not what comes next is worse. I mean, so so far, here's who so far as of this morning anyway. Scalise and Jim Jordan are the two who have so far started campaigning for the speakership. Jim Jordan is kind of like Ted Cruz is to the Senate, right? Like, no one likes him except, I don't even think other members of the Freedom Caucus particularly like him. He's not going to have enough support, I don't think, within GOP members to secure the speakership. Scalise has some of his own problems, which, he's the number 2 Republican in the House, but I don't know. It's going to be weird. But the fact that they're going to wait a week to even do anything is kind of crazy. And then there's the whole question of, so the other fuckery that has happened is that McHenry, becomes pro tem, and the first fucking thing he does after saying that, that the office is vacated, or confirming that or whatever,
right,
and dismissing the House, he also throws Nancy Pelosi, Steny Hoyer out of their hideaway offices, which there's been some outcry on that, because depending on how you read the rules in the House, like the Speaker, when they're designated Speaker for the purposes of succession, then that's different than if they've been assigned to to be a temporary Speaker. Because you can have temporary Speakers like that for specific purposes, but technically, from what I have read, that the House rules, this is what the House rules states: with the approval of the House, the Speaker may appoint a member to act as Speaker pro tempore only to sign enrolled bills and joint resolutions for a specific period of time. The list of members with this duty, is made public. But this was a secret list to begin with as to who would succeed McCarthy, if, in the cases of succession. And some of the things that I've read say that that his only job is to basically elect, to oversee a new Speaker being selected and elected to the office.
Yeah.
So who knows? But I guess McHenry is just going to run wild, and who knows what else he'll do. He's a twerp. I don't like him.
He is. I don't like him either. And is he a twerp? Absolutely. And do I think he is feeling the momentary burst of power that he is going to only have for a very short time? Yeah. That's the only way I can look at it. It was a show of force because it's the only one he's ever going to get. The thing that concerns me about the speakership, period, on the Republican side is whether or not they're going to find anyone who anyone can trust, because it seems like we are now at the point on the Republican side where anything you want, you are willing to lie, cheat, and steal to get, including to people that are supposed to be able to rely on you. I think the fact that they're blaming the Democrats for McCarthy being ousted is so hilarious, only because there is no one to blame but Matt Gaetz, who started this whole thing. By the way, that rule was promised to Gaetz that he would be able to use it for supporting McCarthy in the first place. So McCarthy agreed to the rule that ousted him. So the fact that he's now trying, or anyone is trying to blame Democrats for this, is completely missing what actually happened. And I suggest anyone who is curious go research that, because it's pretty funny. But Democrats now know officially there is no one on the Republican side that can be trusted. Period, end of story, really. Because anyone will say or do anything to get the speakership. That is the example they have. So I don't know where anyone goes from here. The House of Representatives, unfortunately, will remain at a standstill. Nothing can go through now, right? I mean, there's not a speaker.
Well, no, I think
really.
that no, not really. But I think that I honestly I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see where this goes. And I mean, keep in mind, like, they have less than 45 days to pass, a budget, or the government shuts down. So
it's amazing. It's amazing. Again, and I'm just completely blown away by the fact that this is. So for folks who don't know, this was only attempted once before in history that I know of, and it failed, and that's quite a long time ago. So this is really uncharted territory where a speaker has been ousted. So everything that happens it's just like Trump world. Anything that could happen might.
Well, and I mean, I think so. Yeah, you're right. This has never happened. But McCarthy he made the deal that said any one member could call for a vote. Prior to that, it took 2/3, didn't it?
Yeah, to have a no confidence vote. Yeah, I mean, there were actual rules in place.
Right. So, I mean, and so we can just say it's another historic low and historic first for the GOP. I also want to point out that every one of the times that the government has been shut down in the last 30 years has been due to Republicans. The Republicans have been in control of either the House and the Senate, or, just the House. So who knows what this is?
Yeah, your tax dollars not being at work is thanks to the Republicans. The fact that some of us will have folks in our families perhaps not get their Social Security checks on time. These are some of the things that happened during the government shutdown. So be aware that your friends, the Republicans, are the people that always bring us, for some reason, to the brink of disaster. And we're fortunate enough that most of the time we get pulled back somewhat. But this is just an ongoing mess. And once again, blaming the Democrats is the only thing they have, because they can't even speak to their own actions. The fact that Gaetz is walking around like he did something of great importance is hilarious. And the fact that Democrats are being blamed for it is pure T insanity. So I don't know. Anyone who is buying into that bullshit needs to check again for what actually happened and how McCarthy set himself up for this to happen. Because it's a stunning exercise in stupidity, in my opinion.
I agree. I agree. I mean, it's ridiculous all the way around. When it comes to a government shutdown, so like one of the things that happened as a result of the temporary measures that they managed to get through to keep the government from shutting down, which means that those impacted the most are military when it comes to government shutdown. But one of the things that is as a result is that they took out the funding for Ukraine as well. And
That's
so, right. If Ukraine loses the support of the U.S., there's concern that other European countries will follow in withdrawing support. And the last thing we want is for Ukraine to fail. I mean, that is like literally the last thing we want. But these fuckers don't care. So I mean, there's a lot at stake here. I mean, on one hand, it's like it's delightful to sit back and eat popcorn and watch McCarthy squirm and all of the GOP with their nonsense. I watched an interview this morning with Nancy Mace, who's a Republican out of South Carolina, who's now apparently joined forces with Gates, because when she voted to oust, like pretty much everybody has just like jumped on her, and she's lost all of her funding. And so now she's doing the very thing that she criticized Gates for doing in January, which is fundraising off of all of the turmoil. So there's a certain hilarity in all of that.
And they're doing really well fundraising off of it too. And that's part of the problem. The wing nut, the extra wing nut portion of the party is really emboldened now. And if you don't think that's going to have serious ramifications up until and including the presidential election, let me just prep you to know in advance. You are running out, you meaning all of us, you are running out of options as far as who is going to run, because everybody and their mother is terrified of Trump, and no one's going to oppose Biden. So I'm going to tell you, folks, you better pick your poison, because Trump could actually succeed if he doesn't go to jail. If he doesn't go to jail. So. Now, listen, I'm sorry. 2016 should never have happened, but it did. A lot of things shouldn't happen, but they do. And I don't put anything past Americans who are bored, or, Biden's too old, or everything's not perfect, or, we're back in a situation where people are expressing that they're not as pleased as they should be for whatever reason. In the meantime, Joe Biden has been a phenomenal president. You do not need to wake up every morning and wonder what the president has gotten us into. Joe Biden is fighting for medications to be fairly priced. You're not hearing about that now. You'll hear about it when it passes, though, and you'll be grateful for it. And if you're not smart enough to have been following it all this time, you may actually give credit to someone who doesn't deserve it. I'm just saying, don't discount this man. Is he older? Yes. Does that mean he can't do the job? No. Is he not as intriguing as Trump? No, he's not as intriguing. He's not as mystifying. He's not as boisterous. But that's what you don't want in a president. You want someone who can quietly and calmly get things done for the country without flashing it all over TV and various forms of the media. You don't want a president who acts like an absolute asshole. And I think people just are so used to the glitz and glamour, not even glamour, just the loud noises, that I think they've lost sight of what a president is actually supposed to be.
Well, I think that is. I think there's some truth in that. I think that more than anything, that Trump tapped into the really racist underbelly of this country. I think that, largely his gaining office was tapping into that, and it was a pushback against Barack Obama. There is systemic racism in this country that is undeniable. Yeah. I mean, unless you're, white evangelical Republican. Otherwise, it's pretty undeniable, and we're seeing, what we're seeing now, like with what's happening in Florida and other places, is that, they're trying to get this pushed through. They're trying to take us back to before the Civil Rights Act. I mean, it's not going to work. Eventually, it will fail as it should. But everything that is happening right now is a direct result of confrontation, of these very racist ideology that that there's a certain segment that likes that, and so let's talk about what Trump has been up to. Let's talk about that.
The Trump show.
Want to?
Let's talk about the Trump show. Yeah, let's move into Trump show. So he's, oh boy. So aside from being told very specifically, shut your mouth about the clerks in my jurisdiction, Letitia James, sorry, and him proceeding to completely ignore all of his instructions to keep his mouth shut, he just piled onto himself. They term it unforced errors, and I don't know, it just shocks me how he just continues on and on and on. So possibly in more trouble because he lied. What the heck was going on with the Michael Cohen trial? Unbelievable. What's that about?
Okay, so basically, as far as I know, what has happened is that Trump was supposed to give his deposition in this, where he's suing Cohen, right, for like $500 million or something. I think that's
something
right.
Like that. Yeah.
But so he was supposed to sit for a deposition, and he pushed it back because he said he had to be at this at this other the fraud trial, and apparently then he left early yesterday. So so there could possibly be some some repercussions for that, because basically it's kind of like he lied. But also, like, he's already violated the gag order, because I'm pretty sure that he was told to cease and desist in disparaging people online and posting about it online, and then continued to do that. So I don't know what is going to happen with that. But I mean, Trump has got so many legal things happening that are majorly serious that I can't even keep track. I mean, you got the criminal cases, because there's Georgia, there's the case that Jack Smith is bringing against him. Now you've got
Yep.
I mean, he's already, and to be clear, he's already been found liable for fraud. The trial in New York is just to assess, like, what that is going to end up looking like. I mean, basically, all of his properties could go into what are they? It's like a conservatorship, but it has a different name. So that will be like weird and interesting, and I think also that as this progresses, what they're going to find is that he probably does not own what he says he owns.
Yeah. Well, a lot of us have suspected that for many, many years anyway. But it does matter as far as falsifying documentation for becoming a candidate for president, doesn't it? Don't you have to disclose certain incomes and things of that nature to even be in the running for president?
Well, yeah, but I'm not sure exactly. I mean, if he's convicted of a felony, can he still run?
Don't know. Not sure. It's one of those open questions. And then there's a question of, could Trump be Speaker of the House? What? I'm so confused and lost by the things being floated. I mean, he's a defendant in multiple cases. How is this even possible that he could run for anything? I don't get it.
Right. Well, one would think that, but I mean, so here's the thing with as far as Speaker goes, the Constitution does not specifically or explicitly state that the Speaker must be an incumbent member of the House. And so it's possible for a non-member to be elected as Speaker of the House.
But according to CNN, House Republicans' own conference rules could prevent Trump from holding the job, since they require anyone under indictment for a felony for which a sentence of 2 or more years imprisonment may be imposed to step aside from leadership. So, cluster for them right now, no matter what they do in the House. I'm not even sure where they could go. Or are we going to suspend every rule for Trump's sake? It is the most insane thing ever that I've ever seen, where government rules can just be started, rewritten, changed at a moment's notice, depending on the convenience. It's kind of lawless, isn't it?
Oh, well, I think it's certainly that. I mean, if Republicans have shown us anything over the course of the last decade, is that they are perfectly willing to set aside any rule that conflicts with whatever it is that they're trying to achieve. They really don't care what that sounds like or looks like. I mean, look at. So, did you see any of the stuff Jake Tapper had on his show, like John Kelly's statements about? I mean, Trump has said some of the most awful things that we really couldn't, have proof that he said them until just recently. But, I mean, some of the awful things that, I mean, that now have been confirmed by not just Kelly, but others that served in his cabinet have said.
Yeah.
And, I mean, like, to have a president, even though he's now the former president, but that he said these things while he was in office, that, that our wounded soldiers and dead soldiers were losers, and that he didn't want any part of that, and that, I mean, just really horrific stuff. Can you imagine the kind of scandal that would have been, like, even 5-6 years ago, 10 years ago?
Sure.
I mean,
sure.
Come on.
Sure.
Obama wore a tan suit, and it was all that was talked about for like a month, and yet,
which is insanity. But Trump can say he doesn't want to see amputees, people who have served and lost limbs for our country, because it didn't look good for him. This is the kind of person people elected to be president. It is the most horrific form of human being, and I would ask Republicans, before they support Trump, to please check themselves where their conscience is at as far as all this red, white, and blue patriotic bullshit. If you're willing to support Trump, you must actively hate the military. This is my opinion. The only thing I can say about you, if you're a Trump supporter, is that you are an active racist. You hate anyone that doesn't look like you or act like you, or anybody who has a different social status, period, because this is who you're supporting. And I think the fact that, and I've heard this bullshit about, all sides need to talk. We tried that shit, and that shit didn't work. If someone is a basic, horrible person and they support basic, horrible other people, then that's what you've got. There's a limit to how much talking will do as far as changing hearts and minds. I'm not about to become a racist to make a friend. You're not worth it. I'm sorry. I will tolerate your existence because laws say we have to do that, and we live in a polite society, or at least we used to. But the idea that I've got to buddy up with people and not all Republicans, obviously, because not all Republicans are Trump supporters. But the ones who do support Trump, I take serious issue with. And I will tell you honestly, I still take serious issue with liberals who are liberal in name only or who are liberal until they don't get what they want, and then they just don't give a shit. So fuck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so the whole both-siderism thing, and we've talked about this before, and especially as it pertains to the media and journalism, there are facts, and then there are things that are not facts. There's opinion, and there's facts. And there's been an awful lot of tippy-toeing around of, we don't want to call somebody a liar. I'm sorry, if they're a liar, we need to call them a liar.
For sure.
And I think you're seeing less of that, but you're still seeing this level of, apologists within media, and they're still it's like they've learned nothing. They're still covering things exactly as they were, in the lead up to his, when he was campaigning and then when he got somehow inexplicably became president. So, which is my point to pitch, that if you are not fucking registered to vote, you need to go register to vote. And then every time that there's an election, even if it's for dog catcher, you better fucking vote. And you better do your research on who this person is that you're going to vote for.
Yep.
And not just because, the man on the TV told you to vote for them or whatever. Do your homework. There are always good resources online to explore when it comes to elections. So anyway, yeah, it's a fucking mess. The House idiocy of Trump, where will it end? No one knows. Hopefully with a jail sentence. But there's no shortage of horrible people that now, Trump has provided them with a roadmap, to use. Yeah. Although I will say that people like DeSantis cannot quite pull off that tactic. It will not work for DeSantis. And
the Trump, whatever the Trump spell casting or blinding mechanism that he uses to get people under his control does not translate to other members of the party. That's very clear. Ted Cruz thought that was going to translate somehow to him, and it didn't. And DeSantis is really a miserable failure as far as, but Florida is such a shit show. And I worry for and care about our friends who live there a lot, because I don't understand, and I'm concerned that Florida is just going to become a more dangerous place. I don't know. It's just observation.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You are not wrong.
It's concerning, but all right. So other shit's going on apparently. So what? And I saw this briefly, the witch talk thing, that there was someone, apparently now Christians are coming after pagan festivals. What is the story? What happened? I didn't catch all of it. I was between episodes of news. God.
Well, there's been more activity along those lines as far as just Christians showing up at pagan events, and the Wild Hunt has run a couple of stories on that in the last month. But the most there's definitely some more kind of satanic panic kind of driven. It's very reminiscent of the satanic panic of the 90s and the aughts. Where you're seeing some churning up of some things, and there are multiple sources. I don't know that we talked last time about the guy who's accused of murdering the two girls in Illinois. I wrote an article for the Wild Hunt. Basically, his defense is that he didn't do it, but that there is a group of kind of neo-Nazi, would-be heathen, pagan cult people that murdered those two girls, and I read through, his attorneys released this pretty wild. They published they filed a memorandum with the court, kind of outlining this. And normally this is the kind of stuff that you would see in actually in court. You wouldn't see it filed prior to that, and it wouldn't be in a memorandum. But and it was actually some pretty compelling stuff. But at the same time, it's this could really, everybody that I talked to was this could really stoke some more fears about occult practices and heathenry and just paganism in general. So that's probably one of the more recent cases. And then just on Tuesday, the Wild Hunt published a story about that the Department of Justice had issued a warning statement about a group that is connected with the Order of Nine Angles, which is kind of like this weird mix of, it has a pagan, kind of loose pagan themes to it, occult theme stuff, maybe little side order of, allegedly Satanism, ritual magic, you name it. It's got a little bit of everything, but it's really not any of those things. And so the DOJ, released this warning that it was through online activity that they're deliberately targeting minor victims and extorting them into recording or live streaming acts of self-harm and producing child sexual abuse material, and that they use threats and blackmail and manipulation to control their victims. And I mean, it's pretty awful stuff. If you go to the Wild Hunt, it's on their splash page because it was just published this week. The group they identified is referred to as 764, and but they use a bunch of different names. So there's this whole story, which is really, really awful. And it's an offshoot of the Order of Nine Angles. They use a lot of symbols that that any practicing occultist or pagan is going to, immediately identify. Pentagrams and Baphomet, that's all stuff that, you look at, oh, that's pagan. Well, not necessarily.
Right.
So
be careful. Do not be lulled into thinking that all pagans are the same, just as all Christians are not the same. There's nut jobs in every group, just saying.
Right. Well, and this group in particular is pretty awful. I mean, it's just bad. So there's that story. I mean, when the Department of Justice issues the warning, people tend to pay attention to that. How much blowback this is, and I want to be clear that, what most of us within the pagan community would identify as witchcraft, would identify as Wicca, as heathenry, and even, like what the Satanic Temple does, that none of this is connected to any of that. And of course, Wicca and witchcraft are, Wicca in particular is not, has no connection with Satanism. I mean, most pagan paths don't really, they don't recognize like hell or that's like all Christian stuff. So I just want to kind of interject that, but
absolutely.
But there will be many people who will say, "Oh, well," and they're going to lob everything all together, and so it's definitely, and this is a group that operates worldwide, so great, yay. In other satanic panic craziness. On Witch Talk, so the first thing is that one of the people campaigning for the presidential nomination is Vivek Ramaswamy. Let me just say, I want to be clear that if I can't pronounce your last name, maybe you should either change it or not run for office. I think that's probably just. But anyway, That's my own personal bias. I own that. You know, if I can't say the name of somebody, that makes it hard. So Ramaswamy joined TikTok, and within very short order, many witches started hexing him, which also the Wild Hunt did an article on this yesterday. So he joined TikTok and then was immediately cursed and hexed by TikTok witches, and some of them even, like, you know, basically put up videos of, you know, of how they were, you know, their whole little process there. There's a certain level of hilarity in all of that, and normally we probably wouldn't even mention that, except that immediately there has been, you know, we're seeing evangelicals pushing back on how prevalent occult practices are and how dangerous they are, and yada, yada, yada. Anybody that has been a practicing pagan for any length of time already, you know, they could recite the accusations in their sleep. You know, so this is one more thing, you know, and I think that excuse me, I think that we're just going to continue to see stories like this popping up that reflect poorly or are intended to reflect poorly on the pagan community, and kind of feel this, you know, reprisal of satanic panic. You know, this is by no means, these are just stories that have happened in the last week or so, and there have been stories, you know, I mean, because this is something I track, there have been a number of stories like this, you know, pretty much every month. And then finally, yesterday there was a shopkeeper in Pennsylvania who offers tarot readings, and I'm not really sure what's going on with this. I'm pretty sure that the Wild Hunt is working on a story on this, but apparently she was the story that I got was that the chief of police in her town read a news story about her and how she was, you know, the business, she has a witch shop and does readings or offers people guidance or whatever, and then she was immediately, like, I think the police, like, basically showed up at her doorstep, or she was in trouble for violating ordinances, because there are still places, here's a news flash, there are still places in the U.S. where there are laws on the books that prohibit any kind of fortune telling that, you know, that go back a couple hundred years. So I'm not 100% sure. Apparently the police have issued their own statement. I think she was in court today, but I'm not sure. But that is yet another instance, and you know, and once again, this is not anything new. I know, like, the Wild Hunt covered, there were a bunch of stories out of Virginia. There was a little shop that offered tarot, and they kept trying to shut them down because they were offering readings, and that you can't sell, you know, you can't provide fortune telling for money. So the way a lot of these places have gotten around it when they're in places like that is they offer readings, but they don't charge for them.
Right.
So I'm sure this is a developing story, as we like to say in the industry. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. But basically, all of this is to underline the fact that, you know, as magical practitioners, we are again looking at constantly being under threat, and being threatened for practicing our religious practices.
Yep. Our religious freedoms are always under the gun, and sometimes more so, sometimes less so, but there is always going to be a faction of people who want to wipe us out just for not believing what they believe. So take that to heart, please. It's important to stay vigilant, stay safe, do your best to protect yourself and others, because it's not getting less dangerous for us. It's getting more so. Also, commercial break. Everybody, please check out wildhunt.org. Give it all your support. Wild Hunt is the pagan paper of record, and we need it. We need it so that we are aware of stories like this that otherwise get buried or not reported at all. So please check out wildhunt.org. Also, please check out House of Black Cat Magic, which, guess what? It's October. It is Black Cat Awareness Month, isn't it? We need to talk about
it. Is.
Talk about the Black Cat, please, and the House of Black Cat Magic.
Okay, so, well, October, the entire month well, first of all, let me just say that every day at House of Black Cat Magic, we celebrate Black Cats. Every day. But October is House of Black Cat, or is Black Cat Awareness Month, and then the International Black Cat Day, Black Cat Awareness Day is October 27th. And we have got a lot going on this month. Everything from Story Time with Cats, which is Wednesday through Friday from 4 to 4:30, where you can come in with your child and hang out in the lounge, and we'll read a story that is appropriate for young children. We have Coloring with Cats, both a child and adult version of those events. So, because sometimes adults just like to come and color, and they don't necessarily want to be in there with a bunch of kids. So we have separate sessions for those. We got a big 3-day event for Samhain, starting off with our magical market, and then we're going to have Witch TV Monday, which you'll be able to come into the lounge and watch, things that are free for us to just have running that feature witchy themes in the lounge. And then on Monday or Tuesday, which is Samhain, we're going to have a big party where you can come and get treats. We'll have some vendors. We're going to bobbing for apples, all kinds of stuff. And we have a cat ancestor wall of remembrance. So you can come in if you've lost a pussycat this year. You can put their name on the wall. And it's not really, and that goes for any family member, no matter how many legs they have, 2, 4, or more, you can put their name on the wall. So, just lots of stuff going on. Every Friday we do churro with cats, just lots of stuff. But the whole idea is that October is dedicated to Black Cat awareness because they've been often so maligned and considered to be bad luck in many cultures. And while there is less risk to them being adopted in October if they're properly vetted, that is something that goes on year-round. Cats and animals in general are abused every day of the year.
Yep.
So we will continue to adopt cats out in October because we vet pretty well when it comes to our potential adopters. But that is why it's Black Cat Awareness Month, is to help dispel those rumors and to remind people that it is only some cultures where cats are are considered bad luck, that there are many cultures and countries around the world where cats are considered to be very lucky, like Japan is one of them, which is where, incidentally, cat cafes originated. And did you know there are more black cats than any other color of cat?
I did not know that. That would not have been my guess.
Well, it's a dominant gene, so there are more, which means they're also, because they are harder to find homes for, they're often the first to be slated for euthanasia, especially if the cat has any kind of, disability or issues or is old. Then, shelters have limited resources, and so black cats are the first to be slated to be euthanized, especially young and old. So our work for October is to educate people about black cats, and everyone should be open to having a black cat because they're fabulous.
They are fabulous, and they're beautiful, and they're wonderful. And kitties are wonderful in general, to be honest. Definitely. If you're looking for a furry friend, give them a forever home. Definitely, this is the month to visit House of Black Cat Magic. What's the location?
So we are located at 841 Haywood Road, and we are open. Normally, we're open Wednesday through Sunday, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. in Asheville, North Carolina. We will be open on Monday and Tuesday, the 30th and the 31st, but then we're going to be closed on November 1st, that following Wednesday. And I just want to say that no matter where you are, if you are looking to adopt an animal, there are tons of places all over the country and all around the world that you can find black cats pretty much just about anywhere. And support your local shelter, your local rescues, because they are doing some of the most thankless work that there is, and a lot of it's horrifying. And ask anyone who works in rescue, and they will tell you some of the most both wonderful, amazing stories and some of the most horrifying stories that you can imagine. So if you're looking for a critter, support your local rescue or shelter. And, of course, if you're within 6 or 7 hours of Asheville and you want a black cat, well, you should certainly come see us.
Absolutely. And on that note, blessed Samhain in advance, everybody. As far as politics go, watch this space. Breaking news as it happens. So we are going to wrap. Hope everybody has a wonderful month. Stay vigilant. If you have friends who aren't registered to vote, get them and yourselves registered. Anything else? Got it? That's it?
I think that's
All
it.
right.
I think that's it.
Sounds good. Say good night, Star.
Good night, Star.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next month. Stay safe.